anti-government protesters out again on the streets. This time less than 48 hours before polling stations in Algeria open. They're vowing to boycott the vote, claiming it won't be fair with the ruling elite still in power. At the same time, 2 former prime ministers were being sentenced in court for corruption and fraud. Ahmed Ouyahia was sentenced for 15 years and his predecessor Abdelmalek Sellal for 12. An international arrest warrant was issued for former Industry Minister Abdelmalek Bouteflika, who's not in the country. In his absence, he was sentenced to 20 years. They all served under long-time President Abdelaziz Bouteflika, who was forced to step down earlier this year after widespread protests rejecting his attempt to run for a 5th term. Those demonstrations have continued for months, with calls for a complete overhaul of the political system.
We've come with slogans that say, every day there will be a march, and we will not stop, to express our refusal for this election. It has been fraudulent since the beginning.
Analysts already predict a voter turnout of less than 15%. There's little evidence sentencing former politicians will persuade Algerians to cast their ballots.
Parading these ministers now publicly is not going to change the mind of the protests and the Algerian people who are actually asking and humbly asking and peacefully asking for constructive change.
If that change doesn't take place, the future in Algeria could be an unstable one. Nicola, Gage, Al Jazeera.
Well, let's get more on this now. We're joined by Dalia Ghanem, a resident scholar at the Carnegie Middle East Centre, and she's joining us live from Beirut. Very good to have you with us on Al Jazeera. Let's start with the sentences because they are significant sentences. But how sceptical are you of the timing, 2 days before the election?
Yeah, the timing is very important, and this election, as well as the trials, actually are seen by many Algerians as a masquerade and a political joke. Actually, many Algerians refer to this election and this trial as the circus. So for them, it is a dirty political trick that is here actually to convince them that the regime is changing, but they are not really convinced.
But Ms. Ghanem, would the protesters rather these, various people not have been tried? I mean, isn't this just the thing that so many protesters have been demanding, that those who abused their power for personal gain face justice?
Yes, no, that's true. But, for a majority of Algerians, these sentences could have been a great step in a real transition to democracy if they were actually made in a different way. Meaning, the first thing is the lack of transparency in all these trials. They are closed hearings and everything is happening behind closed doors. So people as important as former ministers such as Ouyahia and Sellal, but also other, business tycoons such as Ali Haddad and so on and so forth, have been, very important figures under Bouteflika era. So they shouldn't be trialed under and behind closed doors. The second thing that the Algerians don't want is the fact that these people are judged by military court. And that is a matter of fact, shows the exact and the very nature of the Algerian regime, that is actually a military one. It is at the end of the day, the military who are holding the reins of power. The État-Major is in the driver's seat. Algerians are not against this trial, but they want them to be more transparent.
Right, and we've had a number of, key Bouteflika allies sentenced so far. Bouteflika's younger brother, I believe, and also the chief of the intelligence agency. Yet the demonstrators who are calling for these elections to be boycotted say that the elections can't be fair because key allies remain in power. I mean, how free and fair do you think the upcoming election will be?
Well, I I think there are two things in which we don't have doubt anymore. The first one is that elections are going to happen. The question is not whether they are going to happen or no. They are actually happening, and they sorted abroad. And the second question is about the transparency. There is no doubt about the lack of transparency of this election, but there is two wild cards, if I may say. The first one is about the turnout. There is no, available polls in Algeria right now, but I expect the turnout to be very low. How low we will say, but this will clearly put the new elected president in a very, 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 and in a very fragile position. He will lack legitimacy, and he will be put under enormous pressure by the protesters on the one hand and by the military who brought him in power. And the second wild card will be about the security situation. For now, we don't know what is the next move of the security forces, whether the military are going to crack down severely on the protesters or no, whether they will just, capitalize and rely on, the internal division, or whether they will just, continue to ignore people's demands, relying on the exhaustion of the popular movement.
Crucial things to watch out for in the upcoming election, Ms. Ghanem. Thank you for breaking them down for us. Dalia Ghanem, live in Beirut. Thank you.
Thank you.